Hey, wrestling fans, this is your favorite homie, JR, novice blogger, DJ, radio personality, musician, and right now you're listening to the Top of the Morning podcast, brought to you by TopRopeReport.com.
Wow, what a big week in the world of professional wrestling. This is the Top of the Morning podcast, presented by TopRopeReport.com. I'm your host, Eric Ames, and this is episode 22 of the program. Of course, there was a lot going on this week with WrestleMania, Raw after Mania, SmackDown Live after Mania. Of course, there was TakeOver and the Hall of Fame this past weekend. So on the show this week, our guest is a local celebrity here in the state of Maine, formerly of WJBQ Q97.9, your favorite homie JR, and we talk about all the happenings in the WWE this week. Some very in-depth conversations. I was pleasantly surprised by JR. He knows a lot more than you would expect. Like he said off the air with me, people kind of get a perception of him just because of his job, that he's kind of out partying all the time, when in reality he's really just staying home and watching WWE Network. So a lot of good information in here and some really good insights from JR about all the happenings from WrestleMania, Raw, SmackDown Live, and then next week's Superstar Shakeup, which is going to switch up the rosters for both brands. So definitely looking forward to see what happens with that. We, of course, talk about his music career, a little bit about his DJing, working for Q, and then he's kind of gone and ventured out onto his own to kind of pursue his dreams. So, yeah, definitely a great episode this week, lots of interesting info. So here is episode 22 of the Top of the Morning podcast with my guest, your favorite homie, JR.
Bring it to the floor.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here, and on the line with us today is a man who, if you live locally here in Maine, you'll definitely recognize his voice. He is formerly of Q97.9, WJBQ, and I kind of came in contact with him as I found out he is a wrestling fan and follows us on Twitter, and he's my favorite homie, your favorite homie, JR. JR, what's happening today, my man?
Hey, dude, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, definitely was a little surprising to see, because, you know, I had heard you on the radio before, and we kind of have a couple of mutual friends, but, you know, we never really had any interaction. I was like, well, I know who this guy is, so maybe he would want to jump on and talk a little bit of wrestling with me. So definitely very cool to have you on. Somebody that I would call, I guess I'd call you a local celebrity. I mean, you definitely have a bigger name than I do. So.
I like to refer to it as full broke, hot famous. That's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah, we are, I'm actually friends with a local comedian who has been kind of making a name for himself, Ian Stewart, and I guess he would he would refer to you as Portland famous, I suppose.
I'll take it.
All right, so you're obviously, you know, you DJ, and of course you were on the radio for a couple of years, so kind of give me a little bit of your story, you know, about being here in Maine and just how you kind of broke into the whole music scene.
Well, the music scene was very interesting for me for a lot of years. I started out in a group that didn't really end up going anywhere. If I recall, I actually believe I got kicked out of my very own group that I named, but that's all water under the bridge. Eventually went solo, and music was always kind of my calling. It's just always been in my heart. I had some success in about 2010, 2011 with my debut mixtape, which was called Homie Rock, Flip Shades, and Nikes. And that was just a whirlwind for me. I actually got my first ever manager, and I was booking shows all over Maine. And from there, I kind of branched out because I couldn't get every local DJ that I really looked up to spin my song in the clubs and in the bars, you know? So I was like, I'm going to become the best DJ that I can, and I'm going to play my own stuff. That way people have to hear it. I thought that was like a recipe for success, you know? Fast forward a couple years after that, I landed a job on Q97.9, which was my dream job since I was like 15. And at first I was just a mix show DJ, where I would supply a 30-minute mix show 5 days a week for the Q Mix at 6. And eventually, my good buddy and mentor, Rob Steele, got back his night show and said, I'll accept my show back under one condition. JR has to do the show with me. Now, mind you, I just told you I wanted to do this job for my entire life, and up to that point, I never actually got to talk on the air. So I started with Steel Z. I did 6 months with him. They moved him down to afternoon drive, which is like peak hour. I stayed on at nights, and I did the show myself for 3 years, #1 night show in the entire state for 3 years. I'm really proud of that. But on top of that, I recently just left that job because the desire that I had to write and record music was kind of like on the back burner, and I didn't want that anymore. I really wanted to put my best foot forward with this career. So I legitimately quit my job, which was my only means of income at the time, to pursue my music full time. And that leads us full circle to just releasing my brand new music video, Climb.
Well, I can definitely relate to that myself. You know, those that have listened to the podcast before know that I do still have what I call a shoot job because I definitely need some kind of an income.
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't work technically full-time, which I guess would be 40 hours a week, but with TopRopeReport.com and the podcast, I mean, I probably work like 90 hours a week just to pursue kind of what I've always wanted to do, which is pro wrestling, which I mean, I've just been so invested since before I can even remember. My friends will often refer to me as a wrestling dictionary. I mean, I feel like I've forgotten more about it than most people even know. So it definitely takes a lot of, I guess, balls, for lack of a better term, to kind of leave something so big and to kind of just invest all of your income and time into pursuing your dreams. So I can totally respect that. And
Thanks, man.
Like you said, you just put out a video for a song called "Climb," which I checked out. Which we talked a little bit beforehand about hip hop and how hip hop is these days. So what's kind of your take on kind of the whole hip hop scene in today's day and age?
I'm so glad that you asked me that, because me and my pal Dave, we talk about this all the time, because here we are putting in, every ounce of time, every resource we have, every penny in our bank accounts to record this music that we're really passionate about. And then you got the new age of mumble rappers. And it legitimately makes me want to hang myself, because I DJ a lot of high schools. Like, I have a tour every year for homecomings and proms. And it's like every single dance, can you play a little Yachty? Can you play Future? And it's like, no, I cannot, because there is a time and a place for that, and it's at the gym when you're trying to max out on your last rep. It's not at a high school dance where you're trying to mac on some other girl. It makes me nuts. It legitimately makes me nuts.
I'm totally with you on that. I was a major hip-hop head back, I'm really dating myself now, but when I was in probably high school, which would have been like 15 years ago now, and I've had this conversation with my friends before, but I've really fallen out of touch with it. I don't even listen to the radio anymore. It's straight from my iPod.
Me neither.
Yeah, straight from my iPod for years now. I used to, at my old job, I would listen in the work truck a little bit here and there. But I've always kind of been of the opinion that the whole scene really kind of started falling apart once the Dirty South movement really kind of took hold, and the art of storytelling really kind of fell apart. What would your take be on that?
Well, I've always been a huge fan. Like, my biggest influence in music, and you might not expect to hear this, but it's Will Smith. I think he was just the ultimate entertainer, and everything that he did, from writing songs to doing TV shows and films, the guy just has charisma, like, through the roof, you know? So I've always respected his music. Another big influence of mine was Run DMC. I remember being a little kid, and me and my dad are early Saturday morning sometime, and we have on MTV because it used to be cool back then. And my first ever
hip-hop... They actually played music back then?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first ever video I saw was Run DMC Walk This Way, and immediately I was hooked. And I just want to touch on something real quick because you were like, you know, I might be kind of dating myself here. I look at it like this. Like, some people tell me, look, homie, you're just old now. You don't understand what's cool. And I have to not agree with that at all, because I think I'm old enough, right, to respect what we grew up with as music, but I'm young enough still to understand when something is absolute crap.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, at this time, you know, I can still kind of get into a song just, you know, for, I guess, the beat and all that kind of stuff. If I feel like going out and having a couple of wobbly pops and just dancing or whatever, which doesn't happen too often because generally I'm a senior citizen if I go out to any bars or anything like that. But yeah, I totally am with you on the Will Smith aspect. I mean, I was a huge fan of his when I was younger. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper, you know. He definitely is extremely talented. You know, his movies have kind of fallen off a little bit at this time, but
recently, yeah.
But yeah, I definitely today the only person that I really can listen to that kind of I think really has the art of storytelling down would be J. Cole. I don't know. Like I said, I don't listen.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I don't listen as much as I used to. He reminds me a lot of Jay-Z, who is my all-time favorite.
Jay's definitely my top 5.
Yeah, I used to have vehement arguments with people when I lived in Florida. When Lil Wayne was white hot, and he's the best. He's the best rapper alive. I'm like, oh my god, just because he says it in a song.
No, you're like, no, he's the best rapper right now.
Yeah, just because he says it in a song doesn't make it true. You know what I mean? So yeah, getting back to Climb, tell me kind of the story behind that, because you really talk about I guess kind of the struggle of really trying to make it in the music business.
Yeah, Climb to me was a very interesting song to write, and I actually wrote that a while back, and I wasn't able to adapt it into the type of sound that I wanted to be, because when I had written it, I didn't know what kind of sound that I wanted, you know? The entire idea of the song is, you know, Climb to me means where you start from somewhere not really knowing what you're doing at all, but you kind of eventually find a formula that works for you. I can remember countless days in high school being told, you'll never write a song that anybody will actually, you know, want to hear, and then you accomplish that, and then you move on to the next part. But it's never enough for naysayers and haters. It was the whole concept of the song is, yeah, you did that, but you can't do this. Yeah, you did this, but you can't do that. And it's like, well, when will it ever be good enough? And then finally, when you get a little bit older and wiser, you start to understand it will never be good enough for anybody, because people want to see you succeed, but not further than they can actually reach. So I've learned in my life through my experiences to accept that, and that's essentially what the Climb is for me. I talk about getting bullied in school. I talk about having bum-ass shoes and, you know, holes in my jeans, and it wasn't on purpose. It's because that's all that my mom could afford, because my dad just wasn't around. So to me, Climb was a very emotional song, and I was really happy that I was able to put like a EDM twist onto it. And that's like the DJ side of me, but I still wanted to be able to, you know, capture the story aspect of being a true hip-hop artist.
Right. Yeah, holes in the jeans before they were cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm so glad you heard it.
Oh, I saw it, I think, before we even talked, because, like I said, we have a couple of mutual friends on social media, and I was like, well, I've heard of this guy before. I'll check it out. And I was like, wow, you know, this is really... It's got kind of an old school feel to it, but it's got, you know, with more of a modern, I guess, beat. You know, I'm not too technical on the the actual music aspect of it, but so tell me a little bit about, you know, because people don't really think of Maine as like a hotbed for music, which I mean, it really isn't in terms of mainstream. But then you have the recent success of someone like the Chainsmokers, who one of them is from Maine, who, forgive me, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but they've really kind of hit it big time. Is that kind of like does that give you any more motivation? Like, yeah, this is really attainable?
Yeah, well, I mean, first you're thinking of Drew from Freeport. I actually had the opportunity to open for them at the State Theater in front of 1,000 people and spend an hour set. That was surreal. But backtracking, I wouldn't necessarily agree that Maine isn't a great, music community. Mainstream, perhaps, yeah. I mean, there's only been a few commercial successes, but all in all, Maine is just an incredible music town. Like, I mean, just take Portland, for example. You can go out, downtown, you can go out to the beach, you can essentially go out anywhere, and there's going to be live bands, DJs, singers, rappers, and not all of it is good, but I have enough, wherewithal in me to understand that if somebody's actually out there putting it on the line, and that's something that I can genuinely respect. So for me, there's a lot of people that I look up to. I remember being 15 years old recording records with Spose before he was anybody and before I was even out of high school, So just to see him have his success and then Drew have his, it's kind of like, if I stick with what I'm doing now and, I keep myself surrounded with positive people, I feel like I can actually make a dent to where at some point in my life I'll be able to hang up my hat and say, you know what, I really accomplished some cool stuff.
Yeah, positivity, I think, is a huge part of anybody being successful. But a lot of times people will say, anybody that's successful didn't get there on their own either. So definitely surrounding yourself with just good people in general is a lot of the battle, in my opinion anyway. At least it has been for us. Probably the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's just negativity at every single corner. There's people that don't want you to succeed. There's people that just want to make fun of what you do. No matter what successes you have or somebody else's mind, if they're already determined that they're not going to support you, whatever you do will never be enough. And as soon as I learned to get by that and not continue to do things just out of spite, but to do things for myself and the people that I care about around me and in my team, that's when I started to have some real local success.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age with social media. I'm sure it's probably the same for you, but being, or trying to kind of be a part of the wrestling business, a lot of times I just have to stay away from it as much as possible because everybody, is an armchair booker, and a lot of it I just want to bash my head off a brick wall.
Absolutely. I mean, and I can only imagine it from your side because growing up as fans, what did we do every single day? Defend wrestling every single day. Just defend it. I still have people that come up to me, even like my friends, hey, this isn't real, right? And I'm just like, so movies are too?
Yeah.
It's like, well, why aren't you watching real people fight? It's like, because I'd rather watch this because it's more entertaining. It is a theatric. It is a happening. It is everything that I want it to be, and sometimes everything that I'd hoped it wouldn't be. But that's why I come back every single week to watch. I cannot get enough of it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I have had that argument with plenty of people before. One of the bigger ones that I can remember off the top of my head was when the Undertaker's streak was broken, and of course all the wrestling fans were all upset, and then all the non-wrestling fans were like, saying the ultimate no, which you just said, like, that's fake, right? And it's like, well, when someone on Game of Thrones dies, that's not real, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah, but to them, those shows are real, and then Walking Dead is real. It's like, how come you can enjoy that, but we can't enjoy this?
I'd much rather watch pro wrestling than, nothing against UFC, because I can enjoy that at certain points in time, but, I mean, I'd much rather watch a predetermined finish wrestling match than two guys actually wrestling and just rolling around on the ground for 5 minutes and not throwing any shots at all. That's boring as hell to me.
I agree. I used to be a big UFC fan, probably about like 2003 to like 2010. I was a big fan of Chuck the Iceman Liddell. I loved Rampage Jackson and Matt Hughes and Tito Ortiz and GSP, and it was just so exciting because the sport was getting, it was getting popular. But I feel like it's peaked, and I feel like it was recently sold because they know, like, look, we've already accomplished all that we can, and there's no regular fans that really watch it anymore. I mean, you have your hardcores that will, but there isn't that mainstream appeal that there was before. And I think wrestling will always have that.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think there's a perfectly good reason why they wanted to bring in a pro wrestler like Brock Lesnar for their big event last year.
Bingo.
So it says a lot. It definitely says a lot. So, of course, this is a wrestling podcast, so we're going to be talking primarily about wrestling. So what's kind of the, beginnings of your wrestling fandom? What do you kind of remember about your first time really watching it and how you really got into it?
What I remember, my first wrestling memories would be going to either the Civic Center or the Expo when I was really young. I'm talking like 4 or 5 with my dad, who was a huge fan he was like the biggest Hulk Hogan fan of all time. And I inherited that. He is one of he is up on a pedestal with a few other guys that we can, talk about later. But I remember that. I remember the early Saturday morning shows, WWF Superstars. And I remember when I was a kid, I was actually on that show at a segment they taped at the Civic Center, and I was doing the bushwhacker dance when they were coming down to the ring because those guys were awesome. So I have really cool early memories. I've been to 2 WrestleManias in my lifetime. WrestleMania 14 in Boston. I got to see Stone Cold Steve Austin beat Shawn Michaels, and then Tyson knock him out at the end of the match. That was amazing. I went to, I believe it was WrestleMania 28, if I'm remembering correctly. That was in Jersey at MetLife with 80,000 plus people, and I legitimately thought that Punk was going to beat Taker's streak that night.
Yep, that was 29, actually. That was 29.
29, okay, yep.
I guarantee
that was a really cool
some of those shows in Portland, I was at the same exact ones, and you've got me beat.
That's awesome, man.
You got me beat on the WrestleMania. I've only been to one, which was, like I said, I used to live in Florida, so it was WrestleMania 24 at the same venue that I was at this week, which was, of course, Ric Flair's retirement and all that good stuff.
And that was also Big Show and Floyd, right?
It was, yeah. That was that
was surprisingly a really cool match, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. That was looking back on it. That's one of the ones that people really will put up there in terms of one of the better WrestleManias that there's been. So, with it happening in the same place this year, I'm kind of thinking to myself like, damn, I wish I still lived down there.
Yeah. The funny thing about that Mania that I went to, 29. I remember I was up north at my girlfriend's house at the time, so it was during Christmas. Now, my sister had sent up my gifts, and I couldn't open them until that day. We hop on FaceTime to do the whole shtick, and I open up this package, and there's some cheap, big lots WWF logo, printed sideways, just bootleg T-shirt, right? And I'm like, thanks, Alicia. And then I open up the shirt, and 2 tickets fall into my lap. And I look at them, and it was 2 tickets to WrestleMania. And I freaked out. And I was so excited. But if you know my sister, I have never, trusted her ever. So I thought those tickets were fake until we actually got through the gate and went into the event. I thought she would take a prank that far. But it ended up being an awesome experience and a great show. And I'll never forget that feeling when those 2 tickets fell in my lap. Dude, I freaked out.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience that I wish every wrestling fan could kind of take in at least once in their life, because there really is nothing like it, whether you're just a fan of the indies or WWE itself. I mean, it's a rock concert with a fireworks show with a wrestling match. I mean, it really is the ultimate in entertainment. And I love hearing that you started watching and grew up as a Hogan fan, because a lot of the people that I talk to really only got into it during the Attitude Era, so they don't really, I guess, kind of understand, the peaks and the valleys that the business goes through. They don't quite have the same appreciation for it, I guess, as someone like me or you would have.
Yeah, it was interesting because watching as I was a kid with Jake the Snake Roberts, who was on your podcast, you were telling me Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, like, growing up watching those guys, like, wow, these are the coolest guys in the world, right? And then a few years later, you get into that new era where you have guys like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Diesel, Razor, who are all just amazing performers. But at the same token, you also had that, all right, every wrestler that we hire now is going to have some sort of job. You're going to have Duke the Dumpster, or you're going to have the Goon who's going to play hockey, or you're going to have Sparkplug Bob Holly. And all that stuff was so lame, but I was still, like, finding the gems and the good parts of it. So I was there certainly before the Attitude Era. And then all of a sudden, I think 6th, 7th grade for me, it was like every Tuesday and every Monday after a, pay-per-view, it was everybody in school. Oh my God, did you see what the Outlaws did? And, it was a great time to be a fan. And there's been some pretty low points, but I've always been able to find, like, the stuff that's still enjoyable.
Yep, same here. So we must be the same age then, because it was around, I want to say 6th or 7th grade when I would start coming to school and I'm seeing NWO shirts and it's like, what the hell is going on? Like, all these people used to make fun of me now, and now they're all watching as much as I do, so...
Same here. I would get teased every day in school because I would wear either my Rock t-shirt, my Stone Cold t-shirt, NWO t-shirt. I had a legitimate wrestling shirt for every 5 days of the week that I was in school, and I would just rotate them because I was just so crazy about it.
Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm in my early 30s, and I've, aside from our own Top Rope Report t-shirts, I've got quite a few of WWE shirts, so at this point it's just like, whatever, I'm a grown man, I don't really care what you say, suck it.
It doesn't matter anymore, it's like, dude, I don't care what you think, this is about me and what I enjoy, and I just could care less.
So, of course, this was a huge week in WWE. So much going on, of course, with WrestleMania weekend, the Hall of Fame, NXT TakeOver, they killed it, like we talked about before we got on the air. The Triple Threat tag match absolutely blew the roof off of that place. So we'll try and cover as much of it as we can. So we'll start with WrestleMania, though, which you said was one of the better ones in the past 10 years, which I totally agree with. Some people, like I said on social media, are complete naysayers. I saw a lot of negativity about it, which I don't quite understand.
McMahon could book the most incredible angle of all time, right? And then people would still jump behind their boards and their computers and be like, that was the worst thing ever. I'm not watching this crap ever again. And then guess what? They'll be tuned back in next week. Exactly. People just like to be angry. I don't get it. I don't know why. People just like to be upset about stuff.
I don't get it either. A lot of times when I can't fight the urge to keep my fingers from typing on social media, I'll tell those people, just stick to watching Ring of Honor or New Japan then, because they're never going to satisfy you if you weren't happy with WrestleMania.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that there's anything wrong with Ring of Honor or New Japan.
Certainly not.
I don't have the time to watch all that WWE is a full-time job at this point.
It really is. I mean, you got Raw on Monday, SmackDown Live on Tuesday, NXT on Wednesday, but then after Raw, you have Raw Talk, and you're like, well, I got to see what's going to happen because last week they had the Hardys on there. This week, so you're like, I have to see that. And then on Tuesday, Talking Smack, Ty Dillinger debuts on SmackDown, and I was freaking out, so I, of course, had to watch that too.
Yeah, and then you got 205 Live also, and then they've also got they're going to be doing a UK Championship show, so, there really is just an endless supply. But back to WrestleMania, if you could kind of pick out one thing that really stood out, which is going to be hard because everything on that show was good, what would have been the biggest takeaway for you?
Well, you start at the top, right? You start with Taker losing and leaving his gear in the ring. And I'm a grown-ass man, but I, legit had tears in my eyes because for me, that's the end of an era. That's the end of childhood, and that was really difficult for me to take. Even though we've expected it to come for 3-4 years now, every year it's been rumored this is Taker's last match. It's like, it's not. Like, he'll be back. And that was the kind of the feeling that I had going into this match. And that was really difficult for me to take. And I think it was probably the most emotional piece of the show. However, my favorite match of the night was AJ Styles, a phenomenal one, versus Shane O'Mac. I thought those guys left it all in the ring. Shane, of course, is going to bust out some crazy high spots, and AJ just made Shane look like $1 million. I thought that was the best wrestling match on the show.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I had a lot of trepidation going into it because I just felt like, AJ had such a great title run, and I was a little sour on them taking the strap away from him just so that they could give Cena the record-tying reign that only lasted 2 weeks, and they only did it because he's, taking time off again now to do a couple of movies, which, in my book, it will never equal what Ric Flair did, ever.
No, it was just a different time and a different era. I mean, you got to think, when Flair was those records, he was up and down, North Carolina, South Carolina, just selling out shows with Ricky the Dragon and just putting on classics like 5 days a week and twice on Sunday. Like, it was just a different time.
Right. Plus, with Cena, he only did it with one company that had 2 world titles for the longest time, so I'll always have kind of an asterisk next to it with him, no matter what anybody says. Not that I'm really a big Cena hater. At this point, I could kind of care less, but yeah, I'm totally with you on the Undertaker thing. Nothing wrong with that. I was, I do live play-by-play for everything, so I was kind of like fighting him back a little bit myself. Which is totally fine, because, I'll be the first one to admit, at Mania 24, Ric Flair's retirement, I definitely was watering up a little bit, because he was kind of always the ultimate to me. But yeah, I totally agree with you on AJ and Shane. I wasn't too keen on it heading into it, but I think, if anything, that just showed everybody that AJ Styles is probably the best wrestler on the planet right now, because he pulled a phenomenal match out of someone who's really limited in the ring, to be honest, other than his high spots.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that was one of the points that I wanted to drive home when I knew that I was going to call you and set up this interview for the podcast. AJ Styles is the best professional wrestler in the world today, bar none.
Yep, I couldn't come up with anything to disagree with you. It kind of sucks that he's, older at this point, but I think if he would have ever been in WWE before, he would have never been given the shot that he got now. Someone like Samoa Joe really kind of opened the door for all those ex-TNA guys, which is funny to me, because I never was like a huge TNA fan. I used to watch, but there was always a handful of guys that I thought to myself, like, man, they would be great in WWE, and now every single one of them are all in WWE.
Isn't that crazy? It's just so bizarre, because I remember, I wasn't like a huge TNA fan either, but I remember in like 2003 or something, I bought like my first AJ Styles Best Of DVD, and I played that thing so much that it just wouldn't work anymore, because some of the things he did with Low Key, Samoa Joe, and, those guys, it was just like, I couldn't understand how somebody that wasn't Shawn Michaels could be that gifted in the ring.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the only reason that Shane became his opponent is because they reached out to Shawn Michaels about coming back, and of course he didn't want to, which I'm totally fine with. I don't think that he should come back. I think he should just leave it as it is. He's got a great legacy. Not that I don't think he could pull it off, because I think he could, but I'm
he
fine.
Could go down for sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with where he left off. It was a good moment for him, and I don't think that he should, I guess, not necessarily ruin that, but just leave it as it is, basically.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if we had some sort of time machine, and we could have the Shawn Michaels of 10 years back even, and the AJ of now, tell me that wouldn't be the single greatest wrestling contest of all time.
Oh, absolutely. I think people would be putting it up there with Savage Steamboat and I guess Michaels, Undertaker, take your pick on which one. But that definitely would be way up there on the list. So again with WrestleMania, since, I mean, I gotta be honest, you know way more than I kind of expected you to know, so this is a great...
Dude, I am nerd herd about this. I told you, I'm into it deep, and at this point in my life, there's no getting out. Like, big man stuck with me for life.
All right. That's definitely good to know. So you'll definitely be able to answer anything I kind of throw at you. So one of
Let's try it.
or well, probably the biggest pop of the night at WrestleMania, I would say, arguably the biggest moment, I guess, aside from the Undertaker's retirement, was the return of the Hardy Boys. So what's kind of your overall?
Oh my God!
Yeah, what's kind of your overall thoughts on them returning, but kind of just being the Hardy Boys again and not really doing the broken gimmick because of the ongoing lawsuit with Impact Wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know how that's going to shake out, but to me, it was so exciting, obviously. But the one thing about it, it was very motivational for me, because here are some guys that were over major. You know, we're talking Attitude Era, WrestleMania 17, best of all time in my mind, tearing down the house with the Dudleys and Edge and Christian, and we're just at an all-time high. And then to kind of see them kind of fizzle out during, you know, the ruthless aggression era, or, you know, whatever they want to call it. And then for them to leave and eventually become more over on the indie scene than they were originally, arguably, with McMahon, and to see them come back, that was just like, holy crap, man. Like, here are guys that had the machine behind them, left, right? And then got more over, or equally as over, on the indie scene, and then for them to come back and get the reaction they did for the entire sellout crowd, 75,000 people. Delete. I was so pumped, but I was here with my dad, and he didn't really know. I was here with my pal Dave and Ross and Keith, and they didn't really get it. They just wanted to come see me watch it because it's hilarious to them, I guess. But I was over the moon happy for those guys to be back, and I really hope we get to see Matt talk, and we get to see them do that whole thing, because it's just it's so fun. It's so cool to me.
Yeah, my take on the whole thing, from everything that I'm reading and hearing, is it doesn't really seem like Impact has any legs to stand on with this lawsuit.
Yeah.
So when I found out that it was pretty much inevitable that the Hardys were coming back in, which the broken gimmick, Jeff Hardy was always the superstar, so that really put Matt on the map. Which,
right? Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, I'm very happy for him. You know, he kind of had a little bit of I guess, a boost in popularity doing the version 1 thing, which I don't think they got enough out of at that point in time, whenever that was. Probably, like almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah, version 1 was awesome, I thought. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. I think it was kind of ahead of its time. But I always was kind of the opinion that if they were going to do the broken gimmick, that they should come in as the Hardys as we remembered them, and then kind of go back into it, because a lot of people that only really watch WWE would have no idea what the hell is going on and why Matt is talking like he's British.
Could you imagine not knowing about any of that and then popping on Raw? And it's like, oh, cool, they're back. Oh, my God, the Hardys. And they're like, what the hell happened to this guy?
Exactly.
It'd be so weird.
I think that they could really have an even better run just with the exposure that WWE would give over Impact Wrestling, which I saw some of the stuff that they did with it on Impact, and personally I thought some of it was really, really like Sci-Fi Channel original movie kind of hokey.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only imagining like what the production value of WWE could do.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, they could do so much more with that gimmick, so I don't think that we've seen the last of it, personally.
What was really shocking about me for the Hardy return is I genuinely didn't expect it to happen, because I remember searching, you know, the net, YouTube, all the stuff, trying to find out what's happening, when all in all I should have been listening to the Top of the Morning podcast, obviously. But I was trying to find out what was happening with them, and then all of a sudden they appeared in Ring of Honor and did a match with the Young Bucks and won the titles. So I was like, all right, well, they're clearly not coming to WWE then. Like, it's a wrap, you know? And then I hear rumblings about McMahon wants to try to buy out ROH, which I'm not surprised. But then I was like, well, maybe there's a chance that they could show up. And at Mania, just like millions of other people, I thought the New Day was going to insert themselves into that match because I thought they served better as in-ring performers rather than hosts. But all in all, I thought they did a good job because it wasn't all about them. But I just didn't expect it. I lost my mind.
Yeah, I honestly didn't see it coming either. When New Day kind of teased that they were going to be entering, and then there was kind
started
of
walking down the ramp a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there was a bit of a silence. I was like, I didn't expect the Hardys. I was thinking, maybe like an NXT call-up, like, which we ended up getting anyway, like the Revival or something like that would have been cool. But
how good are those guys?
Oh, those guys. So, well, I mean, obviously, you'll appreciate them because they're such a throwback, which will transition us right into Raw. Of course, they made their debut, and I can't watch them and then not think about the Brain Busters and like, oh my God. Like,
I was just going to say that,
yeah,
dude.
These guys legitimately are the Revival, old school tag team wrestling, cut off the ring, work off a body part. You don't see that anymore in tag teams.
No. Them and Alpha have just had incredible matches on NXT. And to see kind of Alpha kind of like fizzle out on SmackDown, even though SmackDown I feel is the better show. I'm kind of nervous about Revival because it's like I don't know if the masses of audience will appreciate their style. I really hope they do because their ring psychology is just the ultimate throwback, and I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you on SmackDown being the better show too. It's been disappointing for their tag teams lately, so hopefully, WrestleMania was such a packed card that it's really hard to get everybody on there. I mean, the show was, plus, the main card plus the kickoff was over 7 hours, so it's
7 hours I was here watching that.
It's
crazy.
It's definitely a grind, especially doing play-by-play. I'm pretty sure I'll have carpal tunnel when I'm older, so...
From your tweet? Oh, I bet, man. I bet.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a grind. But yeah, back to Raw, of course, the other big thing that happened was the return of Finn Balor, which everybody's really been waiting for because he's been cleared for a few weeks now. What are your thoughts on him kind of being held off until Raw and not being a part of WrestleMania? Because I firmly expected Samoa Joe to interfere in the Triple H Rollins match, and then Balor would show up to kind of play the equalizer.
Well, my thoughts about that was Rollins and Hunter crushed it, so I'm glad that didn't happen. I think with Finn Balor, we don't necessarily have a storyline for him. We don't necessarily have anything for him to do. Yeah, he could do this, or yeah, he could do that. But I think it was better served for us as fans, in my opinion, and better served for him to wait until the day after Mania for him to make his return, to stand side by side with Seth Rollins. And I just thought that was perfect because I didn't want, not because I was fear of him getting hurt, because, like you said, he's been cleared to go for a while. I think it just wouldn't have made sense. And I think it was best saved for Monday Night Raw, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Plus, I can't wait for the Demon King to return for a pay-per-view. Like, I'm super pumped for that.
Exactly. Yeah, looking back on it, it makes more sense that they held him off because, like I said, it was such a packed card that I don't really know where you could have fit a match in for him and given it, the kind of time that it would have really needed because it was such a long show anyways. Last point about WrestleMania, and then we'll get into some SmackDown Live stuff. Going into that, when it was announced that the SmackDown Women's title match was going to be on the kickoff, there was a huge movement on social media about give SmackDown Women a chance. And then, of course, they ended up on the main card and got swapped out with the Intercontinental Championship match. And then everybody kind of complained about the women's match not getting enough time, which, in my opinion, they should have never complained about it to begin with, because if they would have been left on the kickoff show, it would have been seen by...
They would have had more time.
It would have had more time. It would have been seen by more people because it was on the network. It was on multiple platforms on the internet. It was on the USA Network. What's kind of your overall opinion about the swap and I guess kind of the whole movement of women's wrestling right now?
All right. Well, first things first. I thought those women deserved to be on the main card. I feel there's been such a drive and such a passion throughout the entire company for women's, wrestling, and it's just come so far. Like, first and foremost, I'm the biggest Bayley fan. Like, I know she can't really talk for crap on the mic, but I'm just gonna stick beside her because I know eventually over time she will get better. Okay, but I felt those girls for SmackDown Live deserve to be on the main show. But in saying that, do I feel that Dean Ambrose didn't deserve to be on the main card? No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not my call, but I'm happy with the way that things happened, and I felt they got the moment right, having Naomi go over, who's just super hot right now, and this Feel the Glow gimmick I just feel is really, really cool, and for her to win in her hometown, it was a recipe for success. So I felt they were right where they should have been. I could have enjoyed a longer match, but I think they told the story with the time that they were given on the card, because there was just so much stuff, and it's impossible to fit it within those time restraints.
Exactly. Like, it was already a marathon at that point anyway. A lot of people kind of, I guess, were against Naomi winning, which I don't really understand. It made perfect sense. The Alexa Bliss fans are pretty hardcore. I'll just put it that way.
Well, I mean, and rightfully so, because I think probably two of the top three heels in the entire company is one, Charlotte, and two or three, Bliss. Like, I think she's that good. I really do.
No, I definitely can't disagree with you on that one. Perfect moment for Naomi. Very very predictable, but sometimes the predictable thing is the correct way to go.
It's because in your mind you start to understand. Well, this is what I think will happen. And then it turns into, this is what I want to happen. For her to get hurt, and that the whole thing happened, and for her to come back in time to win the title in her hometown at WrestleMania, that was just super cool, and I was really pumped for those girls.
All right, we'll touch on a little bit of SmackDown Live stuff here before we let you get going. Of course, the huge takeaway from SmackDown Live this week was finally the debut of Shinsuke Nakamura, which blew up the entire WWE universe. Everybody's been waiting for it forever. What do you kind of think about him, kind of having a year-long run in NXT and not really getting called up sooner?
I think it was perfect because, being a fan of both the indies and just being a pro wrestling fan in, general, you start to understand that WWE does their things differently. The cameras are in different spots, and a lot of it starts with the entrance, and it's a whole different kind of game rather than just what you do in the ring. And I thought they handled him greatly. I thought having that full year down in NXT to do his thing and hone his craft and really mold it to the way WWE does their thing was perfect. And I'm really excited to see, what kind of matches we can have with him now on SmackDown, because in NXT, him and Joe were just amazing. And, I remember his debut versus Zayn before Zayn got called up to Raw. That match was unbelievable. Like, this guy is just part of classics, and I think that's going to continue on SmackDown Live. Yeah,
that match with Zayn is one of my favorites of all time. I agree with you. I think they handled him perfectly. I think the biggest reason why he was left, or not necessarily left in NXT, but kind of kept there for longer than everybody thought, is NXT.
They needed him.
NXT's been completely pillaged over the last year, with
the
call-ups last year, and then the draft, which, I mean, if you look at the NXT women's division, it's still completely barren after the draft. We've got more guys coming in now, and Bobby Roode, who is
glorious.
In my book, he's essentially another Triple H to me. He was one of the guys I really kept an eye on in TNA. When AJ Styles left, and then they lost him, and Aries and all those kind of guys is when I fell out of Impact. But he's really kind of ushering in a new era, and now you've got Drew McIntyre coming back, and the debut of Alistair.
That's exciting. I was never a big fan of him before, but again, it's that, like, party thing. Like, he did his thing, but he was never the guy. And for him to go off into the Indies and really build a brand for himself, and now to come back, like, I'm actually kind of pumped to see what he can do now, because before I could just not really care about him, you know?
Yeah, he was booked really poorly. You know, he had a huge push originally with being endorsed by Vince and being called the Chosen One, and then they just kind of never really did anything with him, and he got thrown into 3MB, and that was kind of it for him. You know, it was 3MB was really a career killer for him and Jinder Mahal, who Jinder Mahal's not really doing a whole lot, but Jesus Christ, that guy is in phenomenal shape. And
he's just one of the hugest dudes on the whole entire show. I can't get over it.
Yeah, I've been impressed with him since he's come back, so I'm glad that him and guys like Drew were getting another chance. But yeah, we're getting into a new era of NXT, so definitely a smart decision to kind of let Shinsuke carry that brand for the last year. And then thoughts on Ty Dillinger finally getting his call up after appearing at the Rumble, and then it kind of looked like, well, why is he not up yet? And now he's part of SmackDown Live.
Well, first off, dude, how exciting was it to see him debut at the Rumble at number 10? Did you just lose your mind?
Kind of. Being in the position that I'm in, I kind of, it's a blessing and a curse, because there's things that I, really know are gonna happen ahead of time, so I wasn't, shocked, but knowing his story and how he was a part of, the WWE-owned ECW brand before and got released and got his second chance, I mean, I was definitely happy for the guy, so letting him get another opportunity, it's like, this guy, he really deserves it.
I agree with you, man. I think this is a guy that's busted his ass for over 10 years. He finally, comes across something that's working when nothing else was really sticking to the wall, and the perfect 10. And just like for the longest time, you would even hear just every count 1, 2, 10, and it's just like he wasn't even on the show. He was in NXT, but his whole thing was his personality is so big, and his whole thing is, it's really exciting. I'm really pumped to see him on SmackDown Live, and I really hope that this run for him is everything that he deserves, because a man that's willing to work that hard, breaks back for that long, and finally get that chance, it's so cool to see.
Yeah, it really reminds me a lot of the kind of the Yes movement, not quite on as such a large scale, but I think the 10 chant really has a strong chance of kind of becoming the next big thing like the Yes chants are, as long as they...
I think it could too.
Yeah, as long as they use it right, which is always kind of the biggest question with WWE, because you never really know what they're going to do. Obviously, they have their own agendas, which speaking of their own agendas, I didn't really plan on touching on this part, but going back to WrestleMania, what do you kind of think about Roman Reigns being the guy to, I guess, quote-unquote, retire The Undertaker?
Cool, that's a loaded question. I don't want to jump for my answer. Geez, let's see. I mean, honestly, I thought it was great. I mean, I used to be a big fan of Roman. Like, I don't even remember when it was, like that 2014 maybe, was it? When it was like, oh, Roman's going to win the Rumble, and this, and that, and I was just like super into the Shield too, but I don't know, he just grew so stale, and he's just so boring on the mic, and I think part of that is because they don't really allow him to open up and be himself. Like, he has to remember some sort of script, which is obviously difficult for him to do. But I thought it was perfect in the day and age of wrestling right now for Roman Reigns to be the biggest heel in the company and not be advertised that way. It's weird and it's crazy, and I thought it was really cool that Undertaker went out like a true professional wrestler, like the old school professional wrestler that he is, on his back. And for him to do that for Roman is major, and that just goes again to prove that the kind of stock and the kind of hopes that WWE has for Reigns.
Yeah,
and I thought they
always
did that perfectly.
I've always kind of been of the opinion that, I went to Survivor Series 2013 at the TD Garden, which was kind of the arrival of Roman, where he got his first real big moment. So I've kind of seen his whole evolution, and I've always been of the opinion that everybody liked Roman Reigns until they found out the company liked Roman Reigns. And that was when it that was kind of when it all switched. And like you said, that first time that when he won the Rumble there, everybody kind of got mad because they obviously wanted it to be Daniel Bryan, which, looking back, Roman was the perfect choice because Bryan's career was over within 3 months. So I'm fine with Reigns being the guy to do it. I think he was the good choice for right now. Looking back on it, I've always kind of said that they made a little bit of a mistake when Undertaker didn't put over Bray Wyatt, because I thought the character comparison there, that would have been kind of the perfect scenario, but obviously you can't go back and change that now.
Yeah, let me flip the script and ask you a question real quick.
Man.
Is there another superstar on the active roster today that you felt could have garnered the type of reaction for beating the Undertaker and ultimately retiring him than Roman Reigns?
The only person that I can think of would have been John Cena. Would have been a very similar reaction, because they're essentially the same guy, where they're baby faces, but they've been crammed down our throats for so long now that everybody boos them and is just sick of them. I mean, Roman has the John Cena heat now, basically, which the Cena heat has kind of died down now, because he's pretty much a part-timer at this point with all of his outside projects. But I mean, the John Cena probably, if they would have did it with Orton, I think he would have gotten maybe a similar reaction, because the crowd kind of soured on him for beating Bray Wyatt, which I feel like Bray should have gone over in that, but their feud is.
I think so too.
Their feud is not finished, so we'll see what happens unless one of them gets swapped over.
This whole shake-up coming next week.
Yeah, speaking of which, that will kind of be our last topic here. What do you think about them swapping up the rosters? It hasn't even been a year since the draft.
That's a good point, but 1 year of watching a particular show every week, and then, every month having I don't even call them pay-per-views anymore. They're just like special events, but it's a lot of content to absorb. And then you think of the amount of content you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and just, the network and all that stuff. It's a lot. And you can love a certain, athlete, but there becomes a time when enough is enough. And I'm actually excited about the pickup. I've been hearing things about New Day going over to SmackDown Live and AJ Styles coming over to Raw, which I think would be great. I'd love to see AJ and Joe go at it, because of their, history with TNA and Ring of Honor. I think those would just be absolute classics. I think it's good, and I think more needs to change rather than just a few. I think there needs to be a pretty good shake-up so we can have fresh feuds, fresh matches, fresh storylines, and just really, it's almost like a reboot of the show after a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My only point of contention with this is, like I said, it hasn't even been a year with the draft, and to me, it's almost like it feels kind of lazy creatively, rather than elevating guys from the mid-card up into the main event. You're just taking main event guys from the other show and inserting them, which, I've wrote about a couple of different times now in columns where I always said, going into the draft, that I thought there should have only been one title for each division aside from the IC and US title, because then you could have had, for example, Brock Lesnar's the Universal Champion now. You could have had him working on SmackDown, and that would have presented fresh feuds, and then when he's not on Raw, that would have gave the US title kind of a bigger spotlight, and you could have had that in main event matches. And same thing with the tag titles. Imagine when Gallows and Anderson had the titles, we could have had them working over on SmackDown and then having a reunion with AJ and the Club and the new feuds that presents. And then when you have a title change, it's like, all right, someone from SmackDown has the championship now, and now they're going to be on Raw, and it creates its own...
that would have been really cool, actually.
Yeah, it creates its own fresh matchups within the company without having to swap everything up like the rosters, because my fear is that they'll do this every year, and then it will just be kind of like, everybody's been swapped over so many times. It's exactly what happened with the last brand split and why it completely fell apart. So, I mean, we'll
I get that.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with it. Hopefully, they can kind of make it different. I don't want a complete redraft, which it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. They're calling it trades and other moves. So, I mean, it's all kind of up in the air at this point, but I don't want it to ruin, I guess, the integrity of the brand split. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does, and I totally get it from your side too. I mean, you can't just swap top guys for top guys. I'd love to see different ones get kind of boosted up through the card. So I totally get it from your side too. But I think either way, it's going to be exciting, and you're going to have something to talk about on the Top of the Morning podcast for sure.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely been no shortage of news to cover over the last probably month, anyways, going into WrestleMania. Yeah. So lots of good stuff. We probably could talk for at least another hour, I think.
Oh yeah, dude. I could just anything WWE, whatever. I'm just all about it. I could just talk forever too.
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to have you on again here in the future. But before we let you go, why don't I let you plug all your social media stuff? Any kind of things you got coming up? I know that you do something every Friday night, which I'll let you kind of talk about a little bit.
Excellent. Follow me. My social media essentially is at your fave homie JR. I always tell people it's kind of like the Mickey Mouse song, but different. So it's YAFAVHOMIEJR. And it just it sticks in your head, and then they follow me. It works at gigs all the time. I don't know how. Every Friday, I host a Neon Nights event, all ages, at Get Air Portland. And this is my 4th month going on that. It's going strong. We're hitting capacity almost every week. And it's just a blacklight nightclub kind of party with trampolines. And yes, it is as awesome as it sounds. I'm gearing up to release my EP, Full Broke, Half Famous, hopefully sometime this summer. And all in all, I'm DJing a lot. I got some proms my prom tour's coming up in May. And, that's it, man. Just expect some brand new music from a guy that, left his dream job to really give his true passion one last shot.
Well, good stuff, man. Definitely, I would like to encourage everybody to go check out Climb, which you can download on iTunes as well. And like JR said, be on the lookout for his EP and go hop around with him every Friday night and feel the glow.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I gotta spin her song now, huh?
Go for it.
I'm doing it. So that's Queen on tomorrow night. I'm gonna spin her song. I'll play it to you guys.
Well, that's perfect because that's what we're gonna lead you in with on this episode of the podcast. So.
Excellent. I love it. It's all full circle. Hey, dude, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I've always thought it'd be cool to be involved in something like this. And just to know that, there's something going down, right in my hometown, really, of wrestling, local, all that stuff. I think it's great. So keep doing it, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 22 of the Top of the Morning podcast with your favorite homie, JR. Lots of great info there. And like I said, he knew a lot more than I expected him to know. So definitely made for a great conversation. We could have came close to probably 2 or 3 hours just talking about wrestling and all the happenings in the world of WWE. So before we get you out of here, I definitely would like to encourage everybody to go and check out his single Climb on iTunes. You can download it right there. You can follow him on Twitter at YaFaveHomieJR. That's YaFaveHomieJR. And then, as usual, we would like to encourage everybody to keep following TopRopeReport.com for all the latest and greatest news in the world of professional wrestling, especially with the Superstar Shakeup coming up next week. And you can follow TopRopeReport.com on Twitter at TRRWrestling. We are also on Facebook at TopRopeReport.com, and we are on Instagram at TopRopeReport.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm on Twitter at TRR_EAMES. And before I forget, also, if you live in the area and want to have a fun Friday night, you can go check out your fave homie JR at Get Air Portland, which, if you don't know, it is an indoor trampoline park where he will be spinning tracks. I don't know if that's probably not the cool way to say it anymore, but he is there every Friday evening, so definitely be sure to go and check him out and just have a good time under the lights, hopping around all over the place. So, yeah, be sure to check out all episodes of the Top of the Morning podcast on iTunes. Subscribe to us there. We are also on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Podcruncher. And as always, my friends, just remember, it's not how hard you get knocked down, but whether or not you can kick out.